On November 13, 2022, in the quiet college town of Moscow, Idaho, 4 University of Idaho students were brutally murdered inside their off-campus home. The victims, Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Majin, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, were young, full of life, and had no idea that their final night together would end in unimaginable horror. That night, something sinister crept into their home. Something, or someone, who knew exactly what they were doing. The house at 1122 King Road stood just steps away from campus. Known among students as a party house, it was a familiar spot filled with laughter, music, and late-night memories. But by morning, it would become the center of a national nightmare. At around 4 a.m., authorities believe the killer entered the 3-story house while everyone was asleep. Within minutes, 4 students would be dead. 2 other roommates, who lived on the ground floor, somehow survived. They told police they heard strange noises that night, crying, footsteps, a dog barking. One of them even opened her door, only to see a masked figure dressed in black, silently walking past her and exiting the house. She froze. She didn't scream. She locked herself in her room, terrified. For hours, no one called 911. It wasn't until nearly noon the next day that police received a call reporting an unconscious person.
Yep, where's she at? Where's she at?
Yes, he's
Moscow Police Department, you're in here to announce yourself.
What they found instead was a blood-soaked crime scene that would haunt the nation. The attack was brutal. The victims had been stabbed multiple times with a fixed-blade knife. There were no signs of forced entry, no valuables stolen, and no evidence of sexual assault. Whoever did this had one purpose: kill. The community of Moscow, with its population of just 25,000, was thrown into chaos. Students fled home in fear, dorms went on lockdown, and parents demanded answers. But days turned into weeks, and police had no suspect. No murder weapon, no motive. Rumors spread like wildfire online: love triangles, stalkers, jealous ex-boyfriends, even serial killers. Every theory seemed possible and none of them made sense. Then, after more than 6 weeks of uncertainty, an arrest changed everything. In late December 2022, police arrested Brian Koberger, a 28-year-old criminology PhD student at Washington State University, just a short drive from Moscow. Koberger wasn't just any student. He was studying criminal behavior, specializing in the psychology of killers. When news broke of his arrest, the nation was stunned. How could someone so obsessed with studying murder actually commit one? Investigators said Koberger's car, a white Hyundai Elantra, had been spotted near the crime scene several times that night. His phone records placed him in the area. And most chilling of all, a single knife sheath with his DNA was found beside one of the victims. It was enough for police to move in. On December 30, 2022, Koberger was arrested at his parents' home in Pennsylvania after a cross-country drive. He didn't resist. He didn't speak. He just stared blankly as if he'd already prepared for this moment. The case only grew darker from there. Investigators began to uncover disturbing details about Koberger's past. Former classmates described him as socially awkward and obsessive. Some said he struggled with addiction and isolation, others that he was intensely controlling. He once posted on Reddit, asking ex-convicts to share their emotions during and after committing crimes. He wanted to know what they thought, what they felt, and what drove them, as if he was dissecting the human mind in preparation for his own experiment. Could this have been the ultimate test for him, a chance to prove his own theories? Or was it something more personal, a twisted need for power? When investigators tracked his movements, the timeline was chilling. Koberger had driven the long route back to Pennsylvania after the murders, his phone suspiciously turned off during key hours that night. But once he reached home, he began circling his parents' neighborhood in the early morning hours, as if he couldn't rest. He cleaned his car meticulously, almost obsessively. Police later found him wearing surgical gloves as he rummaged through trash bins, apparently checking for evidence the FBI might have missed. Yet despite the evidence, Koberger maintains his innocence. His defense argues that the DNA on the knife sheath could have been transferred, that the police's digital evidence is circumstantial. The trial, which has already been delayed multiple times, could stretch for years. And until it concludes, many questions remain unanswered. Why these victims? Why that house? Why that night? Was it random? Or was it a targeted act driven by obsession? As the investigation unfolded, eerie patterns emerged. Koberger had apparently been following some of the victims on social media. Cell tower data even suggested that he'd been near their house multiple times before the murders. Was he stalking them? Was he studying them? And most disturbing of all, did he believe he could get away with it simply because he understood how investigations work? It's a chilling irony. The man who studied how killers think may have become one himself. In the months that followed, the town of Moscow tried to heal. Candlelight vigils filled the campus. Thousands of people gathered to honor the victims. Photos of 4 smiling faces, Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan, reminded everyone that this wasn't just a crime scene. It was a tragedy that shattered real lives. Kaylee and Madison had been best friends since childhood. Xana and Ethan were a young couple who had only just started their journey together. They had dreams, plans, families who loved them, all stolen in a single night. The King Road house has since been demolished at the request of the victims' families. They didn't want it to become a morbid tourist attraction. But even though the structure is gone, the horror that happened inside will never be forgotten. The Idaho murders remind us that even in the safest-looking places, evil can find its way in. It hides in plain sight. It studies, it waits, and when it finally strikes, it leaves behind scars that time can't erase. Whether Brian Koberger is truly guilty or not, one thing is certain: 4 innocent lives were stolen, and an entire nation watched in disbelief as the story unfolded. Justice may come eventually, but peace, that may take much longer.
He tried to take everything from me. My friends, my safety, my identity, my future. He took their lives, but I will continue trying to be like them to make them proud.
This is the Dark Enigma, where truth hides behind shadows, and the light reveals more horror than comfort. If you were drawn to this story, don't forget to subscribe and join us as we uncover the darkness lurking in the corners of our world. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and remember, sometimes the monsters aren't in the dark. They're right beside us.